So I want to shift into kind of the preparation and training and maybe just selfishly use myself as a little bit of a guinea pig.
Yep.
With two expert coaches in the room. Haute Route.
FTFP.
Oh yeah, FTFP. That's just it. Just shut it down. But like, so the Haute Route Asheville is what I'm doing, and what you're doing. I don't know about you yet, but it's end of May, and so what, from your guys' perspective, what is like, how do you prepare for these events? I mean, considering people like me, you know, are working a lot, are in school, or they have, you know, families or whatever, it's more of, there's other responsibilities obviously going on. Tell me what I should do.
Well, it's just like anything. I mean, like we were talking about earlier, once you register for that event, which by the way is a great way to bookend things in terms of accountability, mm-hmm. You've given yourself a financial incentive, right? It's just like paying Health Cup membership. You go, okay, I've already paid for this. Now that's going to get me out of bed to do it. It's sort of accountability. And the best way to reinforce that is to have an accountability buddy. So you get your friend involved, say, hey, I'm doing Asheville. I want you to do it with me. Yeah. And it can be your local training sparring partner, or it can be your buddy who lives, in another state that you haven't seen in a while, and he needs motivation. And then you guys can start exchanging training ideas. So that accountability at the end will get you out of the bed, at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. to ride the trainer on days where you don't have time to do it otherwise. And it'll push you to get out the door when it's a little windy and 29 degrees or whatever. And then an hour and a half later, you go, man, I'm really glad I did that bike ride.
Yeah.
And then it's just like any training program. It's one step at a time, one foot in front of the other. You got to build towards your goal until you get to the point where you can handle the load. And this isn't rocket science. It's basically a hard 100-mile bike ride with more fuel and more water, and that the sections are going to be a little more, it's not going to be a 100-mile death march where you get dropped early and then you're just on the gas chasing for dear life all day to make a time cut. There's no such thing.
Yeah.
Right? So time cut doesn't exist in Haute Route. In fact, last year in the Rockies, there was one stage that was so challenging, the organizer went to extraordinary events to make sure that everyone could complete the day. They bussed some of the riders who were really challenged by the altitude and this is a big day.
Didn't it snow or something last year for the Haute Route?
It did snow on Berthoud Pass, but the day I'm talking about was a couple days later. The weather was great. Okay. It was just a massive day. It was the break-to-break day.
Oh. The wind.
And the wind on 280, is it 285 or 287? 285. Let's get those highways juxtaposed. But through the center of the state, it was howling wind, and we'd already been up 2 massive climbs. And so the organizer got a bus, grabbed people who needed it, jumped in for the non-time section, shuttled them to the next town, and just clipped some time off, and then let them complete the last time section, which was really cool. And they also, by the way, it was worth mentioning, they did the same thing on the Berthoud Pass day.
Yep.
Probably
they'll take care of you.
40 or 50 of us made it over the top before a huge storm rolled in, started to sleet and snow, and they held riders at the top, stuck them in cars, got some buses from Winter Park, jumped them up there, threw them in the bus, got them down the mountain so that no one had to get hypothermia or risk sliding out in the ice or something, because it came in, the weather in Colorado is moving very fast.
They take care of you. In Jackson, in terms of training, working backwards from the requirements, you need to be able to do a 5-hour ride, right? Then you need to be able to do, most routes involve climbing. So you need to be able to do a 5-hour ride with 10,000 feet of climbing. That's kind of a good benchmark. And then for like training, you start with work, just like what Colby said, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, do longer rides as you get closer to the event. And then you need to add in like the threshold climbing. Yeah. And the what I enjoy most about Haute Route training is that's what I like to do anyway. Go out on a big ride and do some hard climbing with my friends and kind of push yourself that way. So the training can be fun. I mean, you can do structured intervals and all that for it, but on a Saturday, I'm going out and doing a big ride in the mountains. It's highly enjoyable. In the 3-day events, you got to be able to go hard for 3 days in a row. In the 7-day events,
it's a whole nother beast.
You need to have a good aerobic engine. The more homework you do in the off season, this time of year, like right now, the better you're going to be able to recover and handle, day 4 and 5 and 6.
And then during the event, of course, you want to have a very it's very important to emphasize recovery modalities, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're getting massage at the race village, that's part of it. But for example, last year I ran with Lucas Clark, and he brought his Normatex, and we used those.
Nice.
Use those every day. I got to pirate his, and now I have my own pair. I love those things. And you know, so whatever modalities work for you, whether that's arnica cream on your legs or magnesium, or there's a whole host of things you could do to help recovery. I used meditation last year quite a bit, so I think it's up to the individual rider to figure out those methods. But in an event that's that many days in a row, recovery during the event becomes key. And then of course, one of the tips I like to give my riders is you got to think backwards from the event, just like Frank was saying. But specifically in the last about 10 days before a race like that, that's where, for some riders who haven't quite planned ahead, the wheels tend to fall off, metaphorically, because you realize you have all this stuff to do, right? Which is like, oh, I have to change my race tires and my cassette. I got to run the bike to the shop, and I got to go to XL Sports and buy this, and you know, and they've got all these little to-do lists. So if you're thinking far enough ahead, really what the practical thing to do is you want to maximize your recovery in those last 10 days. That means my first rule is take any extraneous stuff off of your calendar. The last 10 days before a ride or a 7-day Haute Route is not the time to go to the dentist. It's not the time to take your cat to the vet. It's not the time to have, unless you have to, you don't have the electrician come and do maintenance on your house.
No gardening.
No gardening, you boil, no, I'm going to build a deck. Like, that's going to wait until after those events, right? So all the stuff that can be pushed to after should be pushed to after. And then you need clear lists on, okay, 10 days out, I'm going to change my cleats and make sure they're in the right place. 8 days out, I'm going to get a new drivetrain so that I can ride it for a few days and make sure everything goes smooth, etc. 8 days out, I'm changing my tires on my race wheels.
Charge up the DI.
Exactly. Perfect example. Yeah, charge up your power meter and your Di2 and all that stuff. If you're a crusty old guy who uses mechanical like me, you don't need to worry about that.
Yeah.
But I got too many batteries in my life already. Yeah. So anyway, those are my tips. Like, and then you have more time for maximization of recovery modalities. So you want to minimize fatigue going into those events. And the number one recovery modality that trumps all by a significant margin, in my opinion, sleep.
Yeah.
Extra sleep. Go to bed an hour earlier if you can. Sleep a little bit later if you can. Most people can't do that if they have jobs. So go to bed earlier. That's the ninja move. Or take a short nap in the afternoon. Or even if it's 20 minutes of meditation and binaural beats in the afternoon.
And waking up, and like you were saying earlier, maybe waking up earlier, like early to bed, early to rise kind of thing, to prepare for those early mornings.
Hopefully your circadian clock's already a bit adjusted to the earlier waking time by the time you've hit 10 days to go, because I wouldn't want people to cut off sleep going into the last part.
I think like a lot of people probably aren't used to like getting up early enough to start the event or the ride at 7 a.m. or like that's
possible.
That's an early day for a lot of people, like for a race or an event.
Yeah, some of my clients get up mutantly early, like they're up at 4 to 5 to train.
You wait, you're only
I know, I'm 25.
19 right now, so and you already get up early.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to.
You're gonna be that guy at 4 a.m.
Yeah,
when you're our age.
At breakfast in your chamois.
Yeah.
By the way, for those of you who've done Haute Route, get dressed whenever you want to, but I personally feel like when I'm going to be in my chamois for 6 hours, I don't need to have it during breakfast. That's just how I feel about it.
Oh yeah.
You do you.
Yeah. I have a no chamois in public.
No chamois in public?
Yeah, except right before and right after. Definitely not at Whole Foods.
Man.
What
Why?
is the deal?
Why?
People are in their chamois at Whole Foods.
You'll see people in chamois at random restaurants here and there. I just I don't know. It's a bike racer snobbish thing, but for those of us who've raced a long time, the second we cross the line, we want to get out of that thing. That's why I mentioned in your post-ride backpack, I've always got shorts in there.
Shorts and flip-flops.
Yeah, and I mean, just to get technical for a minute, like pinning your testicles down for guys, that has a negative impact on testosterone levels. It really does.
And your sperm count.
And sperm count. Not that I want to have any more kids. I've got one beautiful daughter. I'm one and done. I'm good to go. But I still want things to work, And Jackson's got a future family to plan. Empire, right? Army of Jackson.
Army of little baby Jackson. Got to keep the little boys happy and nice.
It's always about health. Total health.
Yeah.
Balance.
Exactly.
So, ride around for 6 hours in tight clothes, you got to counterbalance that with some.
And especially like for the 7-day things, I mean, that's how,
Yeah.
you know, saddle sores happen, is
Yeah.
spending too much time in there, get festering things
Hygiene.
happening. Yeah.
Go back. My routine is finish, get out of the chamois, go shorts, tee, flip flops, eat the meal. Like, I love that, eating within 30 minutes. I mean, that, you know, that's when the glycogen windows open, get all that food in you. Then I go back to my room and shower, clean up everything, prevent saddle sores.
Yeah. Yep.
And then go to massage. And then after massage, nap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just go back to the room and chill.
So they just have an army of
Yep.
masseuses?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
do.
Wow.
It's just like
the
20 or
village
30.
is massive.
That's
Table,
crazy.
just
Because they
those
probably,
riders
I mean, how many
trickling.
riders are at these things?
The first year we did Rockies, I believe there were close to 400 riders.
Wow.
But keep in mind, after 100 miles of riding, the field will trickle in
It
a
trickles
little
in,
bit.
yeah.
Yeah, it's very trickly. And even after the last time section, people just come in, you know, like I said, in Aspen, we stopped for coffee. That was at the last
Yeah.
time section. So there were a lot of people that had reached the finish before we did, which was great.
So that's training for the Haute Route.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you
you
go.
just got to be able to do a long
Yeah.
ride in
Yeah.
the mountains.
And be sensible. It's, you know, it's about the long-term ramp rate. You don't want to
Yeah.
start doing 6-hour rides tomorrow if you've been riding, you know, 6 hours a week.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's about regular, sensible breaks. When you hit that point after maybe 3 or 4 weeks, depending on, again, your age in the sport and also your overall athletic age, you don't want to rush into a training plan and you don't want to ramp up too quickly. So 3 to 4 weeks in, you take a little detraining, let yourself regenerate, focus on recovery modalities. It doesn't need to be, it's not an endless march.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Per Colby's things not to do 10 days before the event, I think most athletes should take some rest going into the event. You need to rest up and get ahead of that recovery that's needed for even a 3-day, but then really for a 7-day.
Yeah.
I mean, the 7 days was long for me. I was extremely challenged, and it's a tough to get through it. And I did my homework. I did a lot of good training, so it's you want to be on your bike a lot right now, and just more in general.